is the Rangers Journal now.
How are we doing, everyone? Welcome to Monday, the 28th of April's edition of the Rangers Journal. My name's Ryan. I'm your host tonight. I'm joined by Jock. First of all, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Good, mate. Good. Mark, yourself, how are you getting on, buddy? You're on mute, pal.
Hey, sorry. All good for a Monday, mate. All good.
Good. I'm glad to be home for work, mate. It was a bit of a killer day. Longer weekend than I was expecting it to be. And so enjoyed the boxing on Saturday night, let's just put it that way. So all good. We'll be joined by Dylan in just a couple of minutes. He's just running a wee bit late, just getting himself organised. So something a wee bit different for you guys tonight. We're talking about the possibility of Steven Gerrard, a name that won't seem to go away from the press. He's still sitting as one of the favourites, joint with Marco Rose now, as a joint favourite to become the next Rangers manager. So myself and Scott yesterday managed to get an interview done with a journalist from Saudi Arabia who's basically a football expert. I'm sure we can all talk about Gerrard's time at Rangers and probably talk about his time at Aston Villa, but it's a wee bit of an unknown quantity what he was up to whilst in Saudi Arabia. So we've got a wee bit of background on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch the interview. We'll stop at a couple of things through the interview and we'll sit and we'll have a wee chat about what's actually been discussed about it. And I've got a few questions for the panel here. Dylan, yourself, mate, you doing all right just before we get started?
Aye, lads, aye. Running a wee bit late, apologies, but aye, all good apart from that. Don't
worry. So just a wee bit of housekeeping, guys. Just make sure we're on mute just whilst the video's playing. I'll get this started, okay? So your interview was Wild Jabir, is what his name was. So myself and Scott was interviewing him. So we'll get this started, all right?
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Rangers Journal. My name's Scotty and I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan. You all know Ryan, and we've also got a special guest on to speak about Steven Gerrard and his time at Al Ettifaq. I'm joined by Will Jabir. Will, how are you?
I'm very good, yeah. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. It's appreciated. Ryan, how are you, mate?
I'm doing okay, bud. Doing not too bad. Sunday night, so where we are, we're at time of recording, so obviously starting to get the dreads in, waiting for Heartbeat to come on the telly and all this kind of stuff. back to work tomorrow.
I know. So we'll just get right into it. Sum up for me Steven Gerrard's time in Saudi.
I would say it was a mixed bag. I think his biggest impact has been off the pitch. He took over a team, just for context, Ettifaq are a historic club in Saudi, but not a club that's been doing well in recent years. They spent quite a few seasons in lower divisions and have come back just a few seasons ago. Their best years were mid-'80s. They were Saudi Arabia's original invincibles. They won the league without a defeat in '83, and they won it again in '87. But since then, have just suffered. Spent quite a lot of times in the first and second divisions. So that's the context within which that he's come back as part of. Gerrard took over Ettifaq as part of the summer revolution, if you'd say, when quite a few big names have arrived in the country. And Ettifaq were not one of the big clubs that have taken most of the top names. This is where I see Gerrard's biggest impact has been. So since he joined Ettifaq, they've been able to attract quite a lot of big names off the back of having Gerrard. So obviously starting with Jordan Henderson, Gini Wijnaldum, the likes of even Demarai Gray, Moussa Dembele, are not the type of names, Jack Hendry as well. So those are not the type of names that would have typically signed for a club the size of Ettifaq. And for quite a few of those names, the presence of Gerrard has been critical to their recruitment. So this is where I would say is one of the biggest successes of Gerrard at the club. Obviously, since then Henderson's left, but all of the others are still there. Wijnaldum in particular has grown to be the club captain, took over the captain's armband after Henderson's left, and it's had a huge impact. He's the club's top scorer last season and this season as well. So in that sense, I think Gerrard's presence has been transformative for the club. Then moving on from recruitment to his second point of greatest impact is transforming the infrastructure and the setup of the club. So one of the main reasons, one of the main tasks that Gerrard had at the club was to try to bring it to the standard of clubs where he's worked in the past. So with the infrastructure, for a lot of the teams in Saudi, the standards of training, the standards of the facilities are not up to global standards, not for lack of resources, but rather for lack of knowledge of the game and what's required to compete at the top level. So in that sense, I think he's done quite a lot to professionalize the club, to bring it to somewhat the standards that professionals of the such as the names that he's brought in expect to be working on. That's very much the positives. On the pitch, the first half season was very decent. They won their first few games. They were competing at the top end of the table. That's again a club that's historically suffered quite a lot of relegation and promotion, but they were very much in the top five all the way until the first half of the first season, and then things started to go wrong. An injury to Moussa Dembele hasn't helped. He was quite reliant on Dembele for goals, and once he got injured, the result didn't go the way Ettifaq fans would have liked. And from then on, honestly, quite a lot of problems continued to happen. Question marks started to arise about his commitment to the club. Quite a lot of conversations about him living in Bahrain rather than in Saudi. And for context, Bahrain is just 45 minutes away from Dammam, where Ettifaq are based. However, it is a different country. So that obviously is not a good look for the managers to be living in a different country. And I'm sure he's had his reasons. Bahrain, for context, is quite a lot more liberal compared to Saudi. So for someone obviously coming from an English background, the culture would be different for him, for his family. So that's the reason. But nevertheless, it was seen by the fans as a lack of commitment to the cause of the club. And that hasn't helped him, obviously, for the second season. And once the results started going downhill from there, the club actually issued a statement backing the manager, but we all know this is very rarely a positive sign. And then they doubled down on that by recruiting Michael Beale to join him. Obviously, lots of you Rangers fans know him very well. But surprisingly, just weeks after Beale joined, Gerrard was sacked. And surprisingly, more immediately after his departure, they appointed Saad al-Shehri, who's a local coach who's come through Ettifaq, who spent quite a lot of time at the club as a player, then as a coach for the under 16s, under 18s, then took over the Saudi national team under 23. But since his appointment, the club have been on a fantastic run of form. Obviously, still due to the poor results at the start of the season, they now find themselves 7th in the league. But that's off the back of being in the relegation zone earlier in the season. So that very much sums up Gerrard's time at Ettifaq, if I may say.
We'll just pause that there, guys. We'll just get a wee quick run round the questions here. Jock, I'll come to you first of all, mate. First question I wanted to ask you, mate, is obviously we're talking about a massive rebuilding project here. Again, unfortunately, a massive rebuilding project at Rangers. One that Gerrard's obviously done in the past himself. He obviously was with us for a few years, and every year it was building blocks. Do you think Gerrard's got the heart and the desire that he would want to come back and start again with Rangers? Or do you think he would actually be interested in taking the job if the job came in front of him?
I think if he's back, they will. I think that was the biggest gripe he had the first time he was here. He had just won the league and he was pushing and he was challenging the board and sitting in the stands, soaking the champagne. We're talking to Chris Boyd and Sky Sports. He was issuing the board a challenge. I think the term was, you don't fix the roof when it's leaking or something like that. That was the term.
Yeah, fix the roof when the sun's shining.
Aye. So I think if he's back, I think he will, because you could see at the time that squad at that point in the season, the following season, the start was struggling. We were getting wins, but it wasn't great. It wasn't pretty, and we were struggling and limping on. And you could see him visibly frustrated on the sidelines, trying to coach the team. So I think he did say there was unfinished business there. I don't know if that's just a soundbite that any manager would say, but for me personally, I do think he'd want another crack at it, because I do think there is a bit of unfinished business there with him.
Yeah, he's obviously been brought in with a good set of hands over there, and they've looked at him to kind of build something like he did at Ibrox. Mark, just coming on to that, Will spoke about the inexperience of the owners, and obviously looking for an expert to come in and help the infrastructure of the club, talk about the building blocks, the training regime, stadium, and what have you. Given the fact that we're obviously going to hopefully be achieving American owners, and obviously maybe not familiar as well as with soccer, as they'll call it, compared to their own American football brand, do you think Gerrard could possibly be something that they will look towards, given the fact that he's been in before and he helped obviously build a better infrastructure than what we had previously?
Well, I think that was one of the big things for that first part of that interview that I took, that it was very similar to what he done here, wasn't it? Because that was one of the big moans, wasn't it, when he first came. It's a massive club, but the training ground's not up to scratch, and the board members at that point, we've paid money to fix this, and we're fixing things off the park. So I think it's got a lot of similarities to it, where it was a building block. I think we agree that it has to be a building block again. As I say, I think, like Jock, I think he will come back. I think if he was offered it, I think he has got unfinished business. And the more and more I see some of the names linked, Gerrard would be my number one sort of a person for it. I think I'm not sure about bringing Bale with him, and I think Critchley's been mentioned as well, has just been let go for Hearts. Obviously who they had before, but I think we need somebody that knows it a bit. I think some of his signings when he first came sort of helped. I think he went and addressed the centre half issue straight away, and he went and get Goldson, and people have got their ups and downs about him. I think he was a good servant for us, to be honest, for the amount of games he played. Ryan, we touched on that previously, about 70 games a season or whatever, and I think that's one of the big things, that we need to stop leaking goals. So I would be for it. I think I would be for it, and I think what he's done before. I know when he left, and we'll probably come on to that about Villa and Artifact. A lot of similarities. Villa were in a changing period as well, just get promoted, and it didn't quite work out as well. And sort of, I don't think he was initially back there, and then I think they had a wee change as well in owners. And I think the Saudi people, as soon as it's no going well in it, they're looking for, he's not committed, he stays 45 minutes away. But what is that in terms of anything, if it's a better culture for his kids and stuff? So I can understand them maybe staying in Bahrain as opposed to Saudi. But what's a 45-minute drive? But I think when results aren't going your way, I think if it's the same if he came here and he was travelling to and from Liverpool every day, and we were getting beat absent mum, we'd be saying the same. Where's your commitment? So I can understand that part a wee bit as well.
Yeah, you've left me with my next question for Dylan. Actually, one of the quick things that kind of always kind of sat in the back of my mind with Gerrard was that he always spoke about his dream to manage Liverpool, and he was heavily touted to replace Jurgen Klopp if and when Klopp retired. That it was basically up to Rangers to learn the ropes, get an apprenticeship in management, and at such time as that he would go back to his natural home down in Anfield. But Dylan, one of the things that they did mention there was the fact he was living in a different country. And I think it's basically more so that some of the fans took a bit of a grievance to it. They think, if you're in here and you're employed by a Saudi Arabian team, you should be part of our project, not living in Bahrain, which granted it is only 45 minutes away. But he done a similar thing up here where his family, his wife and his kids were all still based in Liverpool. And yes, it is just down the road. But it felt to me as if he was never really ever fully committed to Rangers. If you're actually coming here, you bring your wife, you bring your kids in. I hate to reference to Beale when we're going to come into Beale. Beale moved his family up here, and his family actually still live in Mulgai. So do you think that Gerrard was actually wholly committed to Rangers whilst he was here? Or, and if he comes here next time round, would you expect him to move back up?
It's tough for me because I think what Doug said, I don't think there's much substance in that to excite me about him coming back. It seems like he had the same opportunities had with the fact that, and it's went wrong this time as opposed to he's won anything with them. Same similar to us. I think that since he came, he's always had one foot in the door, one foot out the door. So because his kids and his wife are down in Liverpool, and I'm speaking from a personal point of view here, but I've worked away from home like Monday to Friday and not seeing the kid. I mean, and it's hard going, especially when you're doing that for 2 and 3 years. So I can only imagine what it was like for Gerrard, especially under the pressure that Glasgow brings and the Old Firm brings. It must be stressful. But he always had that one foot out the door for me, and I think that if he came back, it would be exactly the same. Ryan, I think it would be. I don't think his wife and that would want to move up here. And props to Bill, his family did come up and fully embraced it. And I think the way that, and I know we're going to touch on it, but the way Gerrard left, people are saying he's got unfinished business. That's his fault. He's got unfinished business because of the way he left. So it's not really. I don't really feel sorry for him and saying, and I don't even really. Half of me doesn't really believe him when he says that. It's your own fault you've got unfinished business because the way you decided to leave. We never put you out, and we very well could have put him out the season before we won the league because of how bad the results were getting. And I think a lot of people, Gerrard especially, I think we took a massive chance in giving him his first sort of managerial role, and it paid off eventually. But again, I don't think that coming in this time, he's got that. If he does come in, and I don't want him, but he's not going to have that same length of time that he had.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was going to ask you, Joe, because that was against just led me on nicely to it, so thanks for doing that. Does Gerrard still hold the same star status that he did when he first came to us? Now, there was several players that signed for Rangers back then purely because we had Gerrard as manager. Goldson spoke about how Gerrard went to his house and sat in his living room and convinced him and spoke to him about the Rangers project. Joe Rebo made mention to that Lee Boyer obviously was very much in his ear that he should be staying in England and not moving to Scotland, but he came up here purely on the basis that Steven Gerrard was going to be the manager. Do you think Gerrard still has that kind of wow factor that he can attract the bigger names that we might be going after, but obviously looking to try and scout the best of the young talent, even maybe from south of the border?
Yeah, I think he'd still. It's Steven Gerrard. At the end of the day, it's his name, his presence carries weight, doesn't it? He's just one of those. He was always a manager. I thought anytime he spoke, you listened to him. Whereas Beale spoke, he switched off. Tamont spoke, he switched off. But Gerrard kept you engaged with the way he spoke and how he spoke, and he always carried himself quite well. And the name Gerrard will have plenty of weight with signing players. His biggest task, if he given the job, is trying to convince folk like Dylan and the rest of the fans that he's the right man for the job, and he's going to come in and right the wrong of how he left. I was the same. I was raging when Gerrard left at the time. But see, when he goes down to the Premier League and the first signing is a £25 million left back, that was always going to be his trajectory. He was always going to go there, and I agree that we stood by him maybe for longer than we ought to, but it paid off. And then, as I said earlier, he challenged the board. He wanted more. He wanted more from the board, and he didn't get it. And ultimately, he chose to go. And the proof in the pudding. First signing down the Premier League's £25 million player. Like, we just can't compete. And we as fans, I think, we just need to accept that. No, as much as we love our club and as we know how big it is, the Premier League is just a different kettle of fish to us, I'm afraid.
It's almost a different sport. I think it's probably worth noting that when we did win the league at 55, granted there was obviously financial complications with COVID and stuff, but the board delivered them a free transfer in Fashion Sakala and John Lundstrom, the only two players they actually signed that summer. And after winning the league, but you got to factor in the kind of COVID situation where there was a lot of kind of money that didn't come into the club we would still expect to, but we still would have liked to have thought the manager would have got someone. I think had they qualified for the Champions League,
but
things
they
might
also
have
about $7 million for Ryan Kent as well. We're acting like he never get backed.
Aye,
yeah. A lot. When was the last time we spent £7 million a player?
We've never.
So
Kent's actually the highest price we've ever paid for a player apart from Tori Angeli Flo. He's actually he's the second highest player we've ever paid for.
But see these things, sorry to interrupt guys, but see these things though, they're structured in a way that it was $7 million over 5 years.
It's over the duration of his contract.
It's no $7 million we're paying out, so we're paying out seven. Like That gets me with the Ridvan one, or Ridvan with £5 million. It's £5 million if he plays 20 games in the Champions League or something. You're never getting that.
Yep.
There's a few things added onto that that's not always right.
Well, Mark, I'll come to you on this one. His name was floated about quite a few times in the conversation anyway. Michael Beale. What's your thoughts on him? Would he be welcome back to Ibrox?
If you promise me I'm going to win the league, mate, anybody can come back, but I don't know. I think that takes more convincing than the Gerrard one. Yep. I think that would be a wee bit more convincing. I do agree with Jock when Gerrard's. We all remember that first interview, wasn't it? It was let's go, and I think that sort of I went with us. But I'm not sure about Beale. But see, in saying that, sometimes we'll put it this way: would you take McCoy's back, who was horrific?
No.
You know what I mean? So there's things like that. Maybe Beale, as a coach, and he just is a good coach. Maybe that is just what he has to do. And when he be doing interviews, he'll be staying in the background. I don't know. I think if Gerrard comes in or anybody comes in, I think they need to bring their own team, and we need to trust that team's correct. I don't know if any of the current backroom team would be staying under Gerrard. I'm not sure. Obviously, he played with he played with McGregor. I know obviously with the same goalkeeper coach for a few years, but I don't know if like some of them would be sticking about, or as I say, they mentioned Critchley was one of the ones that come in with Gerrard, who's now got a wee bit of prior knowledge of the league. Obviously been at Hearts. I think
Defoe, Stephen Davis, guys like that.
Yeah. I think you've got players that know him, and I think he has got a big player power. I know Jock mentioned that, and I still think he would have that pool. I definitely do believe that you would get somebody that you were maybe 50-50 getting just because it was Steven Gerrard, and I think that could be the same with coaches. I think there would be maybe a few out there that you're not quite sure that would maybe then come in. I don't know about Beale, man. I don't know.
Right. We'll crack on. Right, let's go on with the second part. Let's get yourselves on mute, guys, and we'll get this next part of it done.
Yeah. Ryan, you want to go with that question?
I will. We experienced similar circumstances with Gerrard, and the fact that his family still stayed in Liverpool, whilst obviously he moved to Glasgow, and he was commuting quite regularly back and forth between Liverpool and Glasgow. His kids still went to school in Liverpool. His wife still stayed in Liverpool. Do you know if his family actually came out to Bahrain with him, or did they actually stay in England?
They did come to Bahrain, and he is actually still quite invested in Bahrain. He set up a branch of the Steven Gerrard academies there, and he continued to actually oversee that even after he was sacked from Ettifaq. He was seeing quite regularly in Bahrain.
Yeah, one of our, I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but one of our kind of fellow podders is adamant that he's not able to come back to the UK until November. Pretty much, if he does come back to the UK, he's going to get hit with quite a large income tax bill if he comes here. I don't know if you would know anything about that, but is he still basically in Bahrain because he can't come back to the UK for tax purposes?
It is something that we've seen with other players who've moved over to Saudi from the Premier League, most notably Jordan Henderson, and hence has moved to Ajax instead of going back to England. However, I'm not very familiar with the specifics of that, but there definitely is an impact from a tax perspective if he's to return to the UK.
Sure. Scotty? You're on mute, mate.
See, in terms of player development, obviously, when Steven Gerrard went out, as you say, it was a revolution that summer for Saudi football. Did he help bring the standards up with the players? Did he help improve any of the players that were already there?
Absolutely, yes. I think that's something he's definitely contributed positively to. Quite a lot of players at Ettifaq spoke highly of him, of his impact, about improving the standards of training, improving the way they understand the game, and we've seen quite a few players come through Ettifaq, start playing with the first team more regularly, and getting called up for the national team. So actually, recently, which also kind of worked against him eventually, because some of the young talents that he helped bring through Ettifaq were actually picked up by bigger, richer clubs, such as Etihad in the summer. So after his first season, and that obviously weakened his team. So just shows that he did have an impact on those youngsters and positively influenced their careers, but ultimately to the detriment of the club he managed at Ettifaq.
Sure. How was his style of play when he was out there? When he was with us, he very much played a 4-3-3 formation, and it was quite attacking and quite kind of fast and free-flowing. Is he still playing a similar kind of style of football out there?
It is similar in the sense that it was a 4-3-3. He relied heavily on Jack Hendry to bring the ball from the back, and when he wasn't around, that impacted his. He suffered some injuries, so when he was injured, that impacted his playing style a bit. However, I wouldn't say it was free-flowing. A lot of their play depended on finding Moussa Dembele up front, and he would bring the ball down, and they would have fast wingers. So they had Demarai Gray on the left and Carl Toko Ekambi, Cameroonian winger on the right. And midfield three was at the start it was Henderson, Wijnaldum, and a rotation for the third spot. He brought in Seko Fofana, used to play for Lens. He joined Al Nassr and then joined Ettifaq on loan. So it was quite physical, a lot of crosses, a lot of goals from set pieces, but very much a well-structured 4-3-3.
Okay, guys, that's the second part of it. I don't know if Dylan's with us. His camera's off.
Cutting his hair, I think.
He's cutting his hair. We'll come back to you there, Dylan. There he is.
He's dinner. He's dinner.
You still tuned?
No, sorry, I'm good.
Oh, you're fine, mate. You're fine. Listen, I was just going to come on to you. This one. This was a comment there. So obviously, Wales spoke about kind of Gerrard losing quite a few players. One of the kind of criticisms that Gerrard had during his time, and I think it's brought here by the Graham Park laws, that he refused to sell players. So I think bids obviously came in for Kent, Morelos, and Gerrard kind of put his foot down to say that they wouldn't be leaving, sort of thing. But we always saying that the best kind of Saudi talent that they had there was moved on. He brought players in, developed them, made them better players, and moved them on. So do you think that's something that Gerrard could do? I mean, the thing that I think about our current Rangers team is it's not necessarily a bad team. It's an underperforming team, because we've seen instances before where they went out and they've won absolutely. We see obviously the game at New Year when they've won at Parkhead 3-2. We've seen instances when they went out at Fenerbahce and they beat them. So they're not a bad team. They're just underperforming. Do you think Gerrard could be a guy that could come in and get better from the current crop? And do you think also as well that he could develop the youth players that we've got as he's done before?
It's a tough question. Again, excuse me. I think my answer's going to be biased, because I don't think he'll get a tune out of him for a wee while. I don't think he's going to improve like a Raskin. I don't think his level's going to go any higher. He'll maybe get a tune out of a couple of them who are underperforming anyway. But I don't think that he's going to get a better tune out of them than any other new manager would. And I know that what's his name? Will said there that he improved, and I think in context, I'm not saying that he never, because he has a good. Seems he has got this aura about him. So you do listen with Jock's right. You do listen when he speaks, and you're going to try a wee bit harder. But I think that eventually will fade away, and I think that when he's going out there, the standard out there is probably really, really poor, or a lot poorer than Steven Gerrard, who's won Champions League. Do you know what I mean? So I think to make the players out there better, I don't think it'd be as hard a job for somebody like Steven Gerrard. So I expected them to make the players better, if that makes sense. But I also think that out there, I don't think the manager gets a say in who they buy or who they sell. And again, that's maybe worked against him, because if it was up to him, maybe he'd want to keep a hold of the good players. And again, maybe that's why he didn't do so well and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things here that could have went for him or against him. And it sounds like most of them went against him. But to be honest with you, mate, I don't think that he gets a better tune out or raises any of our players' levels more than anybody else coming in.
Sure. Jock, I'll come to you this one. When I'm asking that question, I've got one player particular in mind, and it's Mohamed Diamande, who we've seen sometimes look fantastic, world class. First half when he was out in Bilbao a couple of weeks ago, brilliant. But then coming on Sunday, just past there, anonymous. Is he somebody that Gerrard could potentially realise a better position? Because how many positions has he had? He's been playing. He started left wing the other night when he was, eventually shoved out there. He's been played as a 10, which didn't work for him. We've seen him as an 8, we've seen him as 6. Do you reckon Gerrard could actually find and actually, get the Diamande that we thought we were signing?
But I'd say so, because he's cultural midfielder, so he could play anywhere across the midfield, Gerrard, couldn't he? And he more often did, because it was just him. It's just the way he did. He gave 110% every game. That's why he became the player he did. So you'd like to think he'd be able to pass that on to players that are already here, youth players that he's going to potentially be given a chance to, and the players that he's going to be bringing in. He seemed to get the best out of some of the midfielders we had at the time, like Kamara at the time. I think we got the best out of Kamara when Gerrard was there. Just as an example, I like the fact that he gave youth players a chance too, which is a big thing. So you look at Bailey Rice. Just imagine Bailey Rice being able to say Steven Gerrard's my manager, and think of the advice, and being still quite young, quite raw, Gerrard would be able to mould him into another version of him, really, in my opinion. So, I think so. I don't see why he couldn't improve what we already have. If you can go to a league like Saudi League, where you say the standard's not the best, and the players aren't going to have the same skill set, but if he can improve players to a certain level with the teams above them, the bigger teams that have Ronaldo on them and stuff are looking at them, then he obviously has that ability to do it at a lower level, so he can definitely do it at a higher level.
Yeah, I think so. Mark, coming to you, mate, he's obviously stuck with this 4-3-3 formation that he played with whilst he was here. It sounds as if he's not really addressed any kind of slightly different tactics. It looks as if he's picked his tactics, and his players need to find themselves within his system rather than finding a system that works for the players that he's got in the building. There's going to be obviously a large amount of recruitment required if we get 4-3, but what's your kind of memories of Gerrard's style and Gerrard's fashion when he was here? Was it something that you enjoyed watching? Was it pleasing in the eye for you?
I think we were more attacking and looked to show we were going to score more goals. I think I know Kent maybe cut back or whatever, but we looked more at goal threat in games. I think we go through games at the moment and you don't know if you're going to score, or you don't look like scoring for maybe large parts of the game. But under Gerrard, I thought, maybe Cedric Itten and he signed Roof, and Morelos was there in various bits and pieces. Did we hold on to these players too long? Possibly, but I think under Gerrard, I thought we were attacking. I felt as though we were going to go out and have a go, regardless who we played, and I don't I think that's the case at the moment. But look, we're all got, it's an entertainment value on it. That's what we're all about. I think if whoever comes in, right, or if it's Gerrard or anybody, you're hoping that we're going to go and where we have to go and buy these players, or they're going to buy based on a structure. Now, our last 3 managers have all changed the structure. Like Michael Beale tried to play the 4-2-2 and signed hundreds of number 10s, and then with no width, which didn't work. And then, so if Gerrard comes in, or whoever comes in, and they've got that right, this is the way I want to play, right? What do we have that plays in that system at the moment, whether it's 4-3-3, 3-5-2, it doesn't really matter what it is, but we need to try and be making sure, as a club and as a whole, we don't just waste money again on, like, we're going to sign wingers, hundreds of wingers, because this manager plays a winger, then it doesn't work, and then, we're going to play somebody that doesn't play wingers, and then you're left with surplus requirements again, because that's where I think we've went wrong in the last couple of sort of managers, and maybe they've been a bit stubborn, or like the way they've played, but we sort of every 2 years when the managers change, we're having to get ready, because we don't have a sort of this is the way we want to play as a club. And maybe the boy Kevin Thilwell I listened to an interview with him that's coming in for Everton. He said that they want a structure right through the club, that all the teams sort of play the same way, similar to what they tried to do with Arsenal and that years and years ago. shows if it's a right winger and they understand the shape. So maybe that's in their thinking of, right, how do we go forward? If it's like, it could go along the Saudi way where Gerrard's nobody's picking the players. They're going to sign players to play in a shape, and that's where the way they'll pick the manager, because they want to play a certain way of entertainment, as opposed to in the last couple. I think we've went, as you say, we signed loads of number 10s, Lammers with no pace in the team. I think that's something we still struggle with at the moment. We don't have any pace. The only pace we've got is really Cortez, who doesn't play. But if, say, you had to play 4-3-3 and it was Gerrard, Cortez could be instrumental next season. Pace on that wide areas, getting to bylines, because he's the only one that scored it. So I think there's players that maybe aren't really playing at the moment and no delivering for us at the moment under a new manager, then get that lift. As Dylan says, is it sustainable for us for the next 12 months, so we can sort of try and be in a title race and still in the Scottish Cup final and various bits and pieces, do well in Europe. And I think that's the big thing for a club perspective going forward. And I think that's what the 49ers will bring. They'll bring a structure from 18s or B team that we all were talking about the other night. We've got a B team player of the year, but we've not got a B team. I don't know how that quite works, but
Me too.
but I think that's where you need to get the structure right through and everything aligns. I don't think everything that we've got at the moment quite aligns with everything, and I think that's where I'm not saying wasted money, because players can fall out of form in various bits and pieces, but we've not really strengthened in right areas. Like we were all crying out for, right, we need pace in the team, and then we go and sign Kieran Dowell, who's no got any pace. So I just don't get it sometimes. You know.
Hopefully these things when you're talking about, hopefully this is what comes out in this audit that was carried out. These things that there's no kind of real progress in that. Dylan, sorry, I'm going to have to ask you another difficult question, mate. It was mentioned there that Gerrard's quite heavily reliant on Jack Hendry, obviously known to us in the Scottish League, Scottish International. If Gerrard was to come in and identify Jack Hendry as a player who'd like to bring to Ibrox, is that something you would welcome? Or given his previous employment history, do you think that was one that we would like to skim over?
Listen, I think a lot of people are looking back with fond memories of Gerrard, and I for one, like, see when he was in charge, right? Mick Beale was took the training. We're all aware of that, right? And he went to Villa with Beale and failed at Villa. So that style that they tried to implement didn't work. He then went to Saudi, and according to this man here, he done all right for the first 6 months. So new manager bounce. Then he failed again. He didn't do well. Then Beale came in, and now they're flying again. So if he comes to Ibrox, Mick Beale's not going to come with him. So what style of football is he going to play? Who's going to be the person taking the team, taking the coaching? And see, a lot of times, Gerrard's football was terrible to watch. See, when we were up against a low block, we had Kent, Morelos, and whoever the right winger was inside, and Tav and Bonner were firing crosses. And that's what it was for the full. We pinned them into their box. We played like Gio, like a horseshoe, and tried to cross the ball into the box. And for me, it only worked when teams come out against us. That's why we looked so good against Celtic. That's why we've done so well in Europe. Again, like other managers, like Gio did, Clermont's football work, Bill even done all right in Europe. So again, if I go back to the fans forum thing, Patrick Stewart mentioned, and maybe that's just buzzwords, but he mentioned a style of play. That's what they were looking for. The Rangers, we now want to play with a style of play, and we want a manager that can implement a style of play. It wasn't we want a manager who's won things. It wasn't we want a manager who understands the team or British football or anything. None of that. It was a style of play they were looking for. For me, Gerrard's style of play, we've seen it with Beale, and we've not seen it without Beale, but with Beale, it eventually worked. But again, I don't think that he's going to have enough time. I don't think that the teams that you come up against are arguably probably better now than they were back then, and the low block just kills them. I know I've been off a wee tagent here about the thing about Jack Henry, but no.
You said no straight away, so that's cool for me.
I wouldn't have him back, sorry.
That's all right. I'm with you on that. I just thought I'd ask you the question on that. But no, I think Will mentioned quite a lot that they were heavily relying on lots of crosses, was what you actually said. That was the kind of key phrase, and we've seen that before with Tav, Barisic. Lots of crosses against a low block, and teams were actually quite happy just to give up the wide areas to Rangers and actually just let us have the wide areas and stand in and just header absolutely everything out. And we didn't really have target man in our time either during Gerrard. You know, we had Morelos, obviously Defoe, Cedric Kitten, I think was signed as to try and be a target man, but actually turned out to be a big Jesse. So it's not really kind of worked for him in that respect. So we'll keep going with the interview, guys. Just get ourselves on mute if we can. Cheers.
See, in terms of Al Ettifaq's club expectations, I'm just trying to gauge a better picture of what I think the expectations would have been on Steven Gerrard now. Since the revolution that summer, where there was millions and billions of pounds spent buying players over from different markets in terms of Saudi football, what was the goal for Gerrard? Was it to compete for league titles? Was it to get into European football? No, not European football, but I think it's a CONCACAF over there, isn't it?
Asian, yeah.
Yeah. So what was his expectations from the club and the fans?
Yeah, so as I said, Ettifaq are not traditionally one of the top 4 or top 5 in the Saudi league. So that expectation was of competing for the title or going on to play in the AFC Champions League. That was never something that was placed on him. However, the expectation was that he would bring Ettifaq to compete consistently for the top 6, which, to be fair, in his first season, he very much was able to do. They did finish 6, so he met the minimum requirement that was expected of him, and that's why he went into the second season with quite a lot of positivity. Even the difficult patches that he's had in the first season were very largely due to injuries, him not having a decent backup for Moussa Dembele. So he went into the second season with still some positivity. However, one important change that's happened in the league before his second season was Al Qadisiyah were promoted from the first division, and those are actually Ettifaq's local rivals. And similar to them, they struggled for a number of years, but just a year earlier, they were bought by Saudi Aramco, which is the richest oil company in the world. So they got promoted, and they invested heavily. They bringing in the likes of Aubameyang, the likes of Nacho from Real Madrid. So suddenly, there was a new rival in town, and that didn't make it easy for him in his second season. So automatically, by default, everyone knew the top 4 would be the top 4. Qadisiyah would take that 5th place spot. They're actually now 4th in the league. So automatically, the expectation was that he might go a place or 2 down, but the poor start of the season combined with maybe some sort of elevated expectations at the same time, where they said, okay, he's had a season, the Qadisiyah have come in, but he's finished 6th last season. Can we finish 6th again this season? Then when results went badly, I think there wasn't enough patience, and honestly, patience is not traditionally a virtue that exists in football, but particularly in Saudi football.
Do you think that was the reason why he was sat? It was reported in the UK that he left by mutual consent, that both parties agreed that it wasn't working anymore. But is the official in Saudi that he was sacked, he was relieved of his duties?
It's a bit tricky. So for context, when Jordan Henderson left Ettifaq after 6 months, there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of negative talk around the club, saying that their project is falling apart, and thus the administration of the club decided to renew Gerrard's contract up until 2027. And that was very much, to say that, no, we are committed to the project. Yes, 1 player is left, but the leader of this project is Gerrard rather than Henderson, and we're backing him. So in that sense, he went into the second season with still 2 more years in his contract. But then when things started to go negatively, there was a lot of pressure from the fans. But within the club, I think the board and the CEO, all of them still thought Gerrard was the right man, and that was regardless of results. So I think from a club perspective, the idea was that he can continue to improve the club, even if results didn't immediately work for them. And I think this was part of the logic why they decided to bring in Michael Beale, so that Gerrard can continue to be the face of the club, continue to be the face of the project, continues to improve different areas of the club, and Beale would support by helping improve results on the pitch. That obviously hasn't worked out. They had to reach some sort of formula, I guess, by which his departure would be announced. They would appease the fans, but it also doesn't look like he's failed at his job, which, to be fair, would be a harsh description if we were to say Gerrard has failed. I don't think he's failed at his time at Ittifaq.
Okay, guys, just going back on that. This is the last wee break before we finish this off here. Joe, come to you first of all. Spoke about not a failure. That was the kind of thing that the message was. Although he wasn't winning, top of the league games and stuff like that, but he was regarded as done a good job. Do you think that was similar to Ibrox, that he done a good job? Although I think he only won 1 out of 12 league trophies or something. I think that was the kind of stat on it, was the staff. But did he do a good job here when he was here?
Yeah, I think you have to say he did, didn't he? Because at the end of the day, the ultimate job was to stop the 10, and he did that. And don't get me wrong, he did have the chance to probably do that sooner. There was 2 Christmases on the bounce there where we came back after Christmas and we just fell apart, and that was the fear going into the 55 season. Are we going to do this again? Thankfully, we didn't, and we had that season was incredible. The Invincible season, which I think because it was during COVID time, there's just a bit of a shine taken off it because of that, and I just don't think it gets the credit that it really deserves, because it was some feat to go to do that, especially during those circumstances with the no crowd, because it wouldn't be easy, But then some people say that maybe it was easier on them because there was no crowd on their back when things weren't going wrong. That wasn't the case. I do think that he needed somebody alongside him, and I think that person he had was in the team, and that was Davis. He had that, that link between him and the team on the pitch was Stephen Davis, because he was his man, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he'll probably need if he's coming back. And I'd like to see Davis be that man, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, we'll get this finished off, then we'll ask a couple of questions, okay?
I know I keep getting back to this, Will, but see the level in Saudi, the level of football, obviously it's full of superstars. Would you say that it's a hard job if you're Steven Gerrard to get Al Ettifaq into the top 6 over there, considering the resources that Steven Gerrard had compared to other clubs?
Yes, I know you would look at it from the outside and say, oh, he's had some big names, some names that are very well known in Scottish and European football. But in comparison to the top teams, for reference, you had Al Hilal, who's won the league that season. Their team, obviously the likes of Ruben Neves, Mitrovic, Neymar, quite a lot of big names, Koulibaly. Then, you have Nasser with Ronaldo and Sadio Mane, etc. So they finished second. Then you have Al Ahly with Riyad Mahrez, Firmino, etc. So in comparison, Ettifaq would very much sit between 5th and 6th in terms of how strong their squad is, in terms of the collection of international players. However, what I would say is, in terms of local players, the quality of local players they have was not up to the standard of the top 4.
Right.
So within that context, I think 5th, 6th, 7th place finish would be what was expected of Ettifaq. So obviously he's not overachieved, but equally he's not underachieved.
Yeah. It's just there's a bit of a stigma over here that he's done a terrible job. He's failed in Saudi. That seems to be, well, with any Rangers support. I don't know what Ryan thinks, but to me, with any Rangers support, it comes across as if, why should we take him back when he's not done a good job in Saudi? It doesn't sound as if he has done a bad job, though.
No, I wouldn't say so. I definitely, towards the end, honestly, there was quite a lot of frustration. You'll find that I myself, honestly, was one of his critics in his last few months at the job. However, when you take a step back, you come out of it and you look at the bigger picture. Obviously, it hasn't helped as well that the new manager is coming and results have immediately bounced up. It does emphasize that perspective that well, look at the difference now. But again, we always know, with a new manager, there's always that new manager bounce. Whether that continues remains to be seen next season. But I think definitely looking at the bigger picture, I think he's done an all right job, and I think also when you take into consideration the amount of adapting he's had to do with Saudi football, it's a completely different place and playing culture and training culture and all of that. Obviously, with the weather being so hot, we do not have training sessions during the day in Saudi. All training sessions happen at 9 or 10 p.m. Just because it's too hot for players to train during the day. So obviously it's quite different to playing in the UK. Matches as well. Very much all of the kickoffs are either at 7 or 9 p.m. So that takes a bit of adapting to. Obviously the culture of the Saudi players. Yes, he's had quite a few players come over from Europe who could be very much adapted to his ways. But then the Saudi players, for the local players, of course, what he's brought on is something that's completely new to them. And I remember actually in the first few weeks of his arrival, there were actually clips of the players collapsing in training because of how intense his training was. So that's obviously something that takes a bit of adapting to. And traditionally, we've not had that many English or in general British managers in the Saudi league. If you look around, it was mostly Spanish, Portuguese, Brazilians, Argentinians, where the culture is not that different compared to a British manager.
I'm finished, Scotty. That's all the questions I had. So appreciate your time, Will. Thank you.
No problem at all. I hope I've been helpful. And
no, definitely. Thanks for that.
And best of luck for Rangers.
Thank you for coming on. It's as appreciated. Do you want to tell folk where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wael Jabir, just as you can see my name, just one word. And yeah, I'll be tweeting a lot about Saudi football.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for coming on again. And that's another episode done, guys. We'll see you soon.
So that was that, guys. That was that all done. So people that are watching, if they want to give Wael a wee follow on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, that'd be appreciated on our behalf. So last couple of questions, guys, just before we head off there. Mark, yourself, you'd mentioned quite a few similarities to the Saudi situation, to Gerrard's situation at Rangers, that not being backed and a lack of patience. Would you say that was there? Particularly looks as if he suffers from a wee bit of lack of squad depth. Would you say that's similar to what happened to him out there by the sounds of things?
Yeah, it does. As I say, look, there's a snobbery, isn't there? Oh, he was sacked for this job, he's sacked for that job, he's not good enough. But obviously, when you're not watching it, but it sounds it there, he's not one of the top teams, so he's just plodding away. The big teams are coming taking his players. I know he took some big players over, Dembele's and Henderson's, maybe a wee bit to the tail end of their career as well. But obviously, that's nothing in comparison with some of the other players that are over there as well. So I think that's it. But it's interesting that the boy, the Wally said himself that he was overcritical, but when he stood back and looked at it, he actually realised that he did do a decent job.
Well, if you look at the job he did here, not that long after he was sacked, we went to the Europa League final. Not that long after he's been sacked from Aston Villa. Aston Villa was it the semi-finals of the Champions League they played in? Obviously, Unai Emery said probably a stronger hand in what's happened here than Van Bronckhorst did at Rangers, but foundations have been laid for teams to go on and be successful, so maybe just a lack of patience, as they're saying.
I think it's a strange one for me. I think we would have won the league that year that Gerrard left, but I don't know if we'd have got to the final.
That's
it. I think we'd have went on and won the league. I think we had sort of a wee marker over Celtic at that point, and then we were winning games. We were going to there, winning with 10 men, and I think we were doing well. And maybe it was just he understood the games a wee bit more, maybe similar to Ferguson. That's why he's won the games recently. But I think we would have still went on and won the league. But I just think, I know everybody's got their things, but he wasn't backed. It doesn't matter what you say. The team, the people running the club at that time, and I don't really want to go away back in the points, but one of the comments was, he refused to sell players. He refused to sell the players because there was no guarantee he was putting that money back in. So if you were selling Morelos and you were selling Kent, were you getting that money? I don't think he was. So that's why he thought, keep a hold of him.
They thought they were going to sell Kent and sign Brandon Barker, didn't they? So it just showed you the quality of the replacements that were coming in the door. So enough said about that. Dylan, mate, last question for you, pal. Keep it brief if you can, mate, so we can stay under the hour. What do you think that Gerrard has learned from his time in Saudi Arabia? If he does come back to Rangers, what will he be doing different? What do you think he's actually gained experience-wise since he's been away that can help Rangers?
It's a toughie, Ryan. I think that you'll probably realise how difficult it is for the likes of the smaller managers in our league. Because it sounds basically, listen, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, right? I'm not for him. I don't want him back. But it sounds like he's basically Derek McInnes of Saudi Arabia. Not just expected to make top 6. Happy to do that, that's fine. So he's not really failed and he's not really done anything good. But he's hit his target the first season. For me, I don't consider it. I don't think you can be successful if you get the sack. At the end of the day, then there's something's went wrong for you to then have got the sack. And like, I don't think that if he comes back, I just don't know, mate. I really don't know about it. I think that is he going to be happy with no picking the players, having to answer to all the people up above him, because he got the really roost with him. We see that last time as well. And he basically took everything. So I know that's a hard job to do, but he had his team behind him to do it. So is he going to be like, no, you're not getting that player, no, we're selling him, Ziggy, man, and I don't want to sell him, and is there going to be a rift that way? I just think, even if you take out everything he's done since he left Rangers, and I know Jock said earlier, it's not the fact that he left us, it's more the way he left. It was out the back door, it was on the fly. That doesn't sit right with me. And again, that's where the loyalty part comes into it. I don't think we owe him anything. I don't think his football's particularly good. I just don't see the clamour for it, to be honest with you, mate.
For me, it's just a safe pair of hands. That's what it is. It's somebody that's, no, a slightly better version. And nothing against Barry, but a slightly better version of Barry Ferguson. Somebody that's going to come in, steady the ship.
Would you not rather a clean sheet with all this new ownership coming in?
Maybe. I want a big checkbook, a big blank checkbook to somebody who can actually go in and have a right good few quid in their hand to go and do it, because that's what it's going to take. We'll quickly run round these guys. Jock, yourself, Steven Gerrard, yes or no?
Probably. Probably.
Probably. Mark?
Jock's the answer there. I'm not too happy. To be honest, I agree. Look, should you ever go back? I think there's so many names thrown about, it's hard to say. I think if we get him, we back him, it'll help. Unfortunately, Dylan, every manager's probably been sacked. Everybody we get has been sacked for somewhere, so that's unfortunate, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I just want to win the league, mate. I don't care who it is, to be honest. I don't care who it is. I just want to win the league.
Before it is, we'll be fine.
Dylan, you can take credit.
Yeah. Dylan, I think you've already given your answers and your reasons for it, so I'm very much on the fence with it myself as well. I would prefer other candidates and other, new ideas to come in that maybe actually have some, but obviously got to be financially back. So we'll wait and see what comes of it, guys. Appreciate everybody watching. There's over 800 of us actually watching this now, so appreciate everybody tuning in, taking the time to do it. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. This interview is just one of a series that we're doing of several candidates that we're being, so we've managed to get interviews from industry experts all over the place that have given their time, thankfully, to us free of charge. I might also add to give us these interviews, so I appreciate everyone who's taking part in it. It's obviously just making the channel bigger and better all the time. So making that, if you can, like and subscribe as much as you can. Tell your friends, your family, all your blue-minded friends who we are and what we're doing. And there's obviously the sponsor here as well. Off to the match I go with the Journal 10 as your discount code to get you 10% off. So maybe stuff for the end of the season there that might be just on discount. All right. But that likes us there, guys. And thanks very much to everyone who's come on, guys. And all these who say that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thank you.